Very well. So let's now continue with the retopology of the skull. Now that we have this guy again, just to keep things clean, let's just hide the group with H, and I'm gonna jump here, select this guy, make a light surface, and now select my low poly. And some people like to work with symmetry. We can do that. We can do symmetry world as Z because it's front and back. And now if I start drawing over here, as you can see, it's also going to draw over here. It's perfectly fine. Some computers struggle a little bit depending on the amount of memory you have and stuff. But if you want to do it, that's perfectly fine. So for instance, here, again, very important, we want to have a middle section. So I'm going to click here and create a middle section right this way. One of the things that we're going to do though is we're going to start like moving some of these lines, because one of the other like golden rules is we want to balance out the area or the distance that each like section is covering. You don't want to have two edges like being really close together and then other edges be like really like pushed apart. Now, here's where things are going to get a little bit interesting. So the problem with this piece right here is that if we just keep moving the edges up, we're going to eventually have a really tiny section that's going to be filled with a lot of divisions. And that's not usually what we want. So a very common technique that we follow here is, again, first of all, we want to keep our middle line. In the middle line, you guys, I mean, it should be pretty obvious why it is important. It's important because when we mirror the object, we want to make sure that things are perfectly perfectly mirror. So here I'm just creating this middle line. We're going to continue to the other side like this, and there we go. And you can see that by itself, it already is kind of like telling us like, hey, we're going to need some triangles. Like if you want to like create or keep this form, we're probably going to need some triangles. Not as many as I can see right here. It's only going to be one. But this triangle is a perfect way to exemplify why they are so important. Triangles are so pivotal to the whole retopology process because they allow us to control the flow of the topology. So as you can see here, instead of having, I think it was like 8 sections going all the way up, we just keep having, or we just have 4 at the very top or the very peak. And we still keep our center line, which is going to be super important for the rest of the process. I'm just going to keep with the center line, as I've mentioned in the last minutes. It's super important, so I'm just going to keep going. One very easy way to do that is just create one point in the center, one point to the side, and just keep drawing. And again, we start with big shapes. Don't try to go with small shapes because it's going to take you forever. We start with very big shapes first. And once we're happy with how this is going, we're going to start adding more details. I'm going to leave the teeth at the very end because those are going to be a little bit more tricky to do. And now I want to talk about, again, edge control or edge flow control in other sections. So, for instance, right here, this face right here needs us to go to all of these different sections, right? But we don't want to like add one more line here because as you can see, if we add one more line here, it goes all the way to the other side. So how can we add one line here without going everywhere else? And the answer is by deleting this face. If we delete that face and we add one line right here, we're going to be able to create 2 section lines right here, which are going to be useful for the edge control on this side. And over here, again, we use a triangle. Just a small little triangle there on the border. It shouldn't affect us as much, especially for this object that's not going to deform. And it will allow us to build this section right here. Again, we don't want to go for super big squares. Oh my God, sorry. We don't want to go for super big squares because we are going to be smoothing this guy. And we're going to be using the conform option to get more resolution. So big squares first, and then later on, if we need more shapes, we're going to add them. Okay, so something like that. Now, here, something really funny happens. As you can see, again, we're creating a loop. These loops are one of my favorite things to do when doing retopology, because, again, they allow us to control the retopology or the topology in a very clean way. So this little horn right here, it's circular, right? We want to have like a circular base to the horn. And that's why we created this little loop, or we're going to create this little loop right here on the base, which is coming from all of this other like meshes that we have over here. And by doing this, now, look at that, we have a little loop. And that loop is super important because once we get into UVs, it's going to allow us to cut the UVs in a really fast and easy way. I'm going to start adding some loops right here. And here again, I know it's going to sound a little bit weird what I'm about to say, but once you do enough retopology, the mesh, it kind of talks to you and it tells you how it needs to be like distributed to get the best results. So that's why I know that right here, a triangle is going to be our best bet. Same thing here. Like I know that triangle right there, it's perfectly fine, and it helps us with the whole control of the topology. So we just keep going here, keep going here, here, and there we go. I know I have enough resolution, so I'm just gonna press a shift to smooth things out. And now for the little like thing right here, the point of the horn, we need to decide, do we want the spiky point or do we want a round point? And as you can see, this is kind of round, so this pretty much tells me that by utilizing the same sort of like topology that we have right here, a round point might be a little bit better. Yes, it's a little bit too much geometry right here, but you can see that's a square and that's a square, and when we smooth this out, it gives us a really nice distribution. We're still going to smooth this. We're going to give the shape an overall smooth, and that's going to help me cover or capture that silhouette a little bit better. But look at that. The horn is ready. On this side, we have this interesting loop. Again, let's really quickly sketch the geometry. So I'm imagining this thing like moves on this sort of like direction right here. And again, the topology is already telling me, hey, like these points are really close. Just combine them. That's fine. Same thing here. Triangle, no problem. We can use that. Over here, there's like, okay, we have 2 lines here and just 1 line here. Well, we can just add 1 more. And that way we save ourselves a little bit of headaches, and we just keep going like that. You can see that here we're not capturing the silhouette as much. Don't worry, when we smooth this, we're going to have more resolution here, and that should be enough to cover that specific area. But if you want to be super precise about that, we can just add 1 line right there, like that, and that line's going to allow me to push this thing in there. However, again, I don't think this is the best option because when we smooth this, then this thing is going to become very, very dense, and that could potentially cause some other issues. So I think this guy right there should be more than enough. Just go down here, here, here. There we go. Same thing here. Just don't think about this. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's it. Same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Especially if it's an area that you're not going to see as much. So all of this like back section of the skull, even though we did sculpt quite a bit of detail, just don't overthink it. Just go for the simple, most efficient way to do this, and that's going to be good. Again, over here we might need to do some corrections for the retopology. But should be fairly easy. Over here, I'm just going to start moving some points so we can connect this. Here, now I can see that another like point might be good so that we can have a triangle, or just have a triangle right there. Look at that. Again, this is going to be smoothed, and then we're going to capture it with the conform. Over here on this like hole thing, it is a good idea to have a loop going down into the hole. So we can do something like this. And like this. And the one thing that we want to avoid, this is very important, and it can happen even to the best of us. We don't want spirals. Spirals kill the flow of the topology because they just keep going. They never end. So we got to be very, very careful about spirals. If this happens to you where you can't really like put the face where you want to, you can also use the tab key to extrude an edge and then just move it around. That's another great tool if you're having issues, because the whole retopology process is camera based. So sometimes the angle at which the camera is trying to find the points is not the best, and that's where that tool works very nicely. Now here, for instance, we start getting into the first like set of problems. Like we have a lot of resolution here, a lot of points, and we don't have as many points right here. Do we want to add 1 point that goes all the way across? It's not really going to hurt us, but it might not be the option. For instance, here, I don't really want to add 1 more point or 1 more line going all the way over here. So we need to find a way to modify the topology. One very easy trick is the following. You delete one face, and then you just fill it with a triangle right there. Okay, so that gives us an extra point right there without really having to go all the way to the top or around the object. Just merge that one right there. Perfect. And again, careful here with the spirals, because this is like a territory for spirals to move. Like this face right here, it's a little bit too stretched out. So I'm just going to add 1 more line, because we're definitely going to need more resolution here for that particular detail. Okay, I wanted to start with this skull section because it's one of those things that it's relatively organic, so that we can practice and understand the flow of the topology. But I'm not being as careful as to how we're going to be once we go into the body of the character. The body of the character is going to be really important because not only do we need to follow all of the rules that we've been talking about, but we also need to take into account that that character is going to be rigged and animated. So the deformation and how we set everything up is going to be really, really important. Now, as you can see, the retopology process does take a while. It's one of those like very time-consuming parts of the production pipeline. Again, the more you do it, the faster you're gonna get. It's not as interesting, so I'm not gonna be able to share like a lot of like interesting bits or techniques. We are gonna have, of course, like certain parts that are gonna be a little bit trickier than others, and I'm going to show you how I would solve them. But I'm going to use the time when we jump into the next chapters to also talk about like character story and character development. So you're going to see me just like placing points and creating the loops and the flow of the elements while talking about the character story and character development, so that we can fill in this time and have a good time. You can see a little triangle there, for instance. And then we just fill this. This I don't love. This is one of the things that a lot of people sometimes do. And it kind of like the topology sometimes lends itself to doing this, but it's not a good idea. And the reason why it's not a good idea is because it removes the sharpness of the lines, right? So in this case, it's better to just have another triangle over here and even here, while still keeping this like sharp line going through the border of the skull. We're almost done with this like first section, so just gonna keep going for a couple more minutes on this one. Same here, like we wanna keep this section. We're gonna capture the border of the element. That's one of the most important things when doing retopology. You wanna keep the border really, really, really clean. The cleaner the border, the cleaner the bakes. And bakes are, of course, the angle for retopology. That's why we do this whole thing. So for instance, there I added one line, and then we can just smooth this out. And there we go. We get a clean distribution there. The hole is now covered. If I need one more line there, which I think we do, well, I think with the smoothing should handle it. This line right here, you can see how it's having a little bit of a hard time. This is where the cut tool is also very, very handy, because we can just cut that and create that. Again, I'm pretty confident that the smooth and the conform technique that I show you will fix a lot of these things, but it's just important that we get as close as possible. For the teeth, we're definitely going to need quite a bit of resolution here. And here I'm going to show you a technique that we use quite frequently. There we go. So this technique is called the reduction technique. Okay, we're going to be using this quite a bit. So as you can see, we have a lot of divisions here on this guy. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and over here we only have 1. Is there a way we can solve it? Yeah. First of all, we can make this thing flow inside. And another one, for instance, right here, if we can create a face, and then using triangles or other shapes, we just reduce the amount of elements. See how these two guys are using this triangle to kind of like join together and dissolve the whole thing, or even like a triangle right there. And that way we can have a lot of resolution on this border and not as much resolution on this inside part, because we don't need it as much, right? Let's just finish this right here. Here we're going to have a star, which is another type of element. There we go. And that's it. As you can see, we've now successfully finished the skull. Of course, I know that we're missing the teeth, but I'm going to stop the video right here because we have all of the main shapes, and this is looking quite nice. We have enough resolution to cover and capture all of the details. Very important. As you can see, we're getting a really huge history right here. Every single point we add, every single thing we do is a history. And this tends to slow down Maya quite a bit. And also it's prone to crash. So to avoid that, once you're happy with this, not only are we going to delete the history, but we're also going to do an increment and save. Remember, increments and saves are going to be really important because they're going to allow us to have like checkpoints. As you create more increment and saves, you can delete the previous ones because it's going to be a little bit of a heavy file due to all of the high polys. But yeah, just keep that in mind. So that's it for this one, guys. I'm going to stop the video right here. And in the next one, we're going to finish with the details, which are the teeth like connections for this guy right here. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.